It begins quietly, almost invisibly, on the skin of a ripening fruit, on the surface of a forgotten glass, near the edge of sweetness turning into decay. A creature no larger than a grain of rice lands without sound. The fruit fly. For most of human history, it was ignored, swatted away, considered a nuisance, a background detail of kitchens and orchards, appearing suddenly and disappearing just as fast. Yet this small insect, fragile in appearance and fleeting in life, would become one of the most important animals ever known to science. The fruit fly belongs to the genus Drosophila, a name derived from Greek words meaning dew-loving. It is a fitting description. These flies thrive where moisture, sugar, and fermentation meet. Their world is the thin boundary between fresh and spoiled, between nourishment and breakdown. Unlike larger animals, the fruit fly does not command attention. It does not roar, hunt, or build. Its survival strategy is speed. Speed of movement, speed of reproduction, speed of evolution. A single fruit fly can complete its entire life cycle in just over a week. Egg to larva, larva to pupa, pupa to adult, each stage unfolding rapidly, almost impatiently, as if time itself is something to outrun. Its body is simple, yet precise. 2 wings, delicate and glass-like, vibrate hundreds of times per second. Large compound eyes, often red, dominate its head, giving it a wide field of vision. Its antennae constantly sample the air, detecting chemical traces of sugar and yeast invisible to all but insects. This fly does not search for fruit because it understands fruit. It searches because evolution taught it to follow fermentation. Where yeast feeds on sugar, fruit flies follow. Where fruit softens and breaks down, life becomes possible for the next generation. The female fruit fly lays her eggs directly onto fermenting surfaces. Within hours, larvae emerge, feeding on microscopic organisms rather than the fruit itself. They tunnel, consume, and grow, surrounded by abundance. Competition is intense. Hundreds of larvae may share a single fruit. Resources vanish quickly. Only the fastest growers survive. This pressure shapes the species with ruthless efficiency. Every generation is a test. And this relentless cycle has repeated for millions of years. The fruit fly's evolutionary success is not measured in size or strength, but in adaptability. Genetic variation spreads rapidly through populations. Mutations appear and disappear in real time. Changes that might take centuries in larger animals can emerge in weeks. Unknowingly, the fruit fly was rehearsing something humanity would one day desperately need. A way to understand life itself. By the early 20th century, scientists searching for a model organism stumbled upon Drosophila melanogaster. It was cheap to maintain, easy to breed, and astonishingly cooperative. Inside its tiny body were answers to enormous questions. Genes, inheritance, mutation, development. The fruit fly became a living library. Over generations, researchers observed eye color changes, wing shape variations, and developmental abnormalities. Each mutation told a story. Each crossbreeding experiment revealed rules that applied far beyond insects. Rules that applied to humans. The fruit fly, once dismissed as a pest, became a mirror. A reflection of how all complex life is built, maintained, and altered over time. Yet outside the laboratory, the fruit fly remained unchanged. Still following ancient instincts. Still drawn to sweetness turning sour. Still living fast and dying young. In kitchens and orchards, it continued its quiet existence, unaware that it had become one of the most studied animals in history. And this is only the beginning. As the 20th century progressed, the fruit fly quietly crossed a threshold. It stopped being just an insect. It became a key to understanding how life is written, edited, copied, and sometimes broken. Inside laboratories, Drosophila melanogaster lived in glass vials. Small, transparent worlds filled with fermenting food. Entire generations were born, lived, reproduced, and died within weeks. Time itself seemed compressed around them. For scientists, this speed was intoxicating. What nature took centuries to reveal in larger animals, the fruit fly revealed in days. Genes could be traced from parent to offspring. Mutations could be observed directly. Traits appeared, vanished, and reappeared with mathematical clarity. The fruit fly's genome, though tiny, mirrored the architecture of far more complex organisms. Including humans. Roughly 60% of the genes that cause disease in humans have recognizable counterparts in the fruit fly. This discovery reshaped biology. Suddenly, illness, development, aging, and even behavior could be studied in a creature that fit on a fingertip. The fly did not resist. It did not know it was being studied. It simply lived, and in doing so, it revealed the invisible rules governing life. But beyond the laboratory, fruit flies continued their ancient rhythm. Their natural world remained the border between abundance and collapse. Orchards, forests, compost heaps, fallen fruit on the forest floor. Places where sweetness begins to turn. In these environments, fruit flies play a subtle but essential ecological role. They are accelerators. By feeding on yeast and bacteria, they influence microbial communities. They help regulate fermentation processes. Their larvae break down organic matter, returning nutrients to the soil faster than decay alone could achieve. They are not destroyers of fruit. They are responders to change. When fruit is healthy, they are absent. When fruit begins to fail, they arrive. Their presence is not the cause of decay, but a signal that decay has already begun. Predators follow. Spiders, ants, birds, and parasitic wasps all depend, in part, on fruit flies as food. Entire micro-food webs orbit around the brief lives. Remove the fruit fly, and these systems slow. Life waits longer to continue. The fruit fly's simplicity is deceptive. Though small, it is capable of complex behaviors. Courtship rituals involve wing vibrations that produce species-specific songs. Males and females recognize one another not by sight, but by rhythm. Chemical signals guide attraction, repulsion, and aggression. Even memory exists in this tiny brain. Fruit flies can learn to avoid danger, remember food locations, and adapt their behavior based on experience. In the wild, these abilities matter. Competition is relentless. Hundreds of flies may converge on a single fruit. Those that respond fastest to changes in smell, temperature, or moisture gain advantage. Evolution is not gentle here. It is fast, brutally fast. Every generation is a filter. Weakness does not persist. Inefficiency disappears. What remains is refined survival. This is why fruit flies have existed, largely unchanged, for millions of years. They do not need to become larger. They do not need to become stronger. They only need to remain adaptable. As humans reshaped the planet, fruit flies adapted alongside us. They moved into cities, homes, markets, and laboratories. Wherever fermentation occurred, they followed. They became urban wildlife, invisible companions of civilization, and in studying them, humans learned uncomfortable truths about themselves. That we are governed by the same genetic rules. That mutation is constant. That perfection does not exist, only balance. The fruit fly showed us that life is not designed. It is adjusted. Small changes, tested relentlessly, shaped by pressure and time. In recent decades, fruit flies have contributed to breakthroughs in neuroscience, circadian rhythms, aging, and even addiction research. Their brains, though simple, operate on principles that scale upward. Sleep, memory, reward, all present, all observable. Yet despite this scientific legacy, the fruit fly remains overlooked outside the lab. It is still swatted away. Still dismissed as trivial, still associated with mess rather than meaning. Perhaps this is fitting. The fruit fly teaches its lessons quietly. It does not demand attention. It does not inspire awe. It simply exists, and in existing, it explains. In a world obsessed with size, power, and spectacle, the fruit fly stands as a reminder that importance is not measured in mass. Sometimes, the smallest lives carry the largest truths. As the fly lands once more on the skin of overripe fruit, its wings vibrating softly, its life already ticking toward its end, it continues a process older than humanity. Birth, change, death, renewal, a cycle so fast we barely notice it. A cycle that explains us all.